around for our Time Walk match and bring you a whole bunch of magic here in our other tables. So we're going to get a chance to see, I think this is the first time, at least for us, you and I, Frank Carsten and Tim Willoughby here, bringing you the details on camera. This is Tron, and Kelvin Chu on a Bant collected company list on the other side of things. As is traditional, the Tron deck having the ways and means to make sure it has all three pieces of Urza's Tron, Urza's Mine, Urza's Tower and Urza's Power Plant in play by turn 3. That meaning that 7 mana available on turn 3 for something large and in charge. We'll just find out what soon enough in the hands of Christian Ortiz. Kelvin Chu on the other side of things, he is on a Bant deck that's got a lot of value but no massive combos. Talk us through how you expect this match to go, Frank.
Well, Kelvin is just playing a very fair deck. You would describe it as a Bant company, but it's not the Spirits deck that you might be used to. It's a deck with Knight of the Reliquary, Spell Queller, there's like Voice of Resurgence, Scavenging Ooze, Meddling Mage, Reflector Mage. It's just fair and interactive creatures, as well as a relatively new card in Knight of Autumn that can, in this matchup, blow up some artifacts on the other side. But by and large, Kelvin is playing a fair game, and Ortiz is, definitely not.
So I would guess that the Meddling Mage did not name Khan Liberated.
No.
It's a bit of a minefield what you're going to name with Meddling Mage if you don't have any additional information. There are a lot of big scary threats that can come down on turn 3 from a Tron deck. Ultimately here, Khan able to get hold of Meddling Mage, and later on we'll be able to do all manner of work on the cards in hand and indeed the permanents of Kelvin Chu. It's going to be a tough old ride for Chu from here on out.
Yeah, maybe Chu was thinking, well, if Ortiz has the Tron on the next turn, I'm not in great shape either, so maybe I'll just hope that he he doesn't, and I'll name something else like Oblivion Stone. One way or another, no matter what he named, it did not work out for him, because this is the dream start for the Tron deck, whereas Kelvin is just playing fair creatures, but that doesn't really match up all that well against a 7 mana Planeswalker that comes down as early as turn 3.
Yeah, so I mean, there was an expedition map, so there was always going to be the Tron for Christian Ortiz. It was just a matter of whether or not he's going to be able to utilize the full 8 mana. 7 mana. 8 mana this turn, which means that Walking Ballista gets to come along, shoot down Knight of Autumn, and potentially shoot down any hopes that Kelvin Chu has of winning this game 1.
Yeah, this is this is an absolute slaughter. But on the right side, the team you see, it's actually the Singaporean national team. So this is Team Singapore already here in Europe in anticipation of the World Magic Cup next weekend. And Kelvin Chu is almost surely the team captain. He's one of the more experienced players in the room. Had a top 4 at the World Championships last year. 5 GP top 8s and a win to his name. But none of that is going to help much in this particular game, I don't think.
Yeah, it turns out Khan cares not for trophies. He's already made of silver.
Well said. I mean, some of these Bant decks with Knight of the Reliquary can set up some infinite combo. Those decks are named Nightfall. But Kelvin doesn't even have any combos in his list. It's just fair creatures all the way.
Meanwhile, if you're looking for things that are unfair, he's not exactly a creature these days. Ugin the Spirit Dragon is going to be a clear and present threat relatively soon. Enough so, in fact, that we decided that it was time to jump forward rather in time in our Time Walk match to a point where Mattia Rizzi, Francisco Sanchez and Christian Ortiz, they're all up a game. They're working on what I like to call the shellacking. If you ever manage to get the full win with your team where your entire team doesn't drop a game in the win, that's the shellacking, and your opponents, well, it's just the same as any other loss, but this is the classy way of doing it.
So the complete 6-0 sweep?
Yes.
Well, I mean, if
at least the 5-0, I think.
Sure.
I will allow to qualify. I'm not going to make that player play out the 6th game, which is entirely irrelevant.
Fair enough. Well, if every player would have 50-50 to win any game, then the probability of going for a complete 6-0 sweep would be 1 in 64. Pretty small, but we might be seeing it here.
And all of these teams, of course, undefeated thus far team matches, but whether or not that means that the individuals have not dropped any matches yet, we have no way of knowing.
No.
Tyler's tracker coming down, bringing a clue along with it. So a nice little board that's going on here for Kelvin Chu, as Christian Ortiz just naturally does his thing, plays Khan Liberated on turn 3, and proceeds to deal with each permanent in turn with that big old Planeswalker.
Honestly, both decks are doing what they were planning to do when you designed them. I mean, the hope for the Tron deck is obviously the turn 3 Karn, that is perfect. But then the hope for Kelvin's deck is to start off with Birds of Paradise or Noble Hierarch on turn 1, and then ramp into some relevant value-generating creatures on turn 2 and turn 3. Now, I would have to expect that this does favor the Tron side of the board, but I'm curious to see how this plays out.
Yeah, it turns out that when you had to compare acceleration, Birds of Paradise versus a full Tron is not a particularly close comparison. Khan gets rid of Tyler's tracker there, but not before it was able to generate 2 clues, one from a Flooded Strand being played, and then a second from that Flooded Strand being cracked.
Yeah, value all the way. But will a bit of card advantage here and there be able to beat Karn Liberated? That, well, it's not impossible, but it's not going to be easy. Speaking of Tron, that's how we have been calling the deck all the time. That name, that does refer to assembling all the 3 Urza lands, and it actually was coined back in the 90s. Yeah, Magic has been around for quite a while, as a reference for the Voltron TV series, in which I believe different robots combined together to turn into something way more powerful, just like the set of Urza lands.
And over the years, Tron decks have been all sorts of different configurations of colours. These days, the deck is essentially mono green or brown with a moderate splash of green, depending on how you look at it. The green mana most useful for the likes of Ancient Stirrings, though you sometimes see a Sylvan Scrying or 2 in there as well, and maybe a World Breaker. These days, there are enough powerful colourless cards that the Urza team does not need a huge amount of help from all of this coloured mana.
True, and just having more basic forest in your deck is also useful when the opposition might have... there we actually have it, Field of Ruin.
Field of Ruin here, at some point, will be able to get rid of one of those as a land. Let's see which one he goes for here. The tower is the one that ultimately taps for the most mana.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as you get rid of any one of the 3, these lands just tap for a single colourless mana.
Well, unless Ortiz finds another piece of the Tron, he could naturally have another Urza's Tower in hand, or just use Expedition Map, Ancient Stirrings, or Sylvan Scrying to find one. With all that card selection, the Tron deck is generally quite consistent at finding all 3 pieces, and even finding a backup copy if one is destroyed.
I mean, between Chromatic Sphere and Chromatic Star as well, this is a deck that, considering it's mono green, actually has a lot of card drawing available to it. Christian Ortiz here. It's not quite as easy as he did in Game 1. Kelvin Chu with a very pretty looking deck here with the likes of black bordered, they look like Japanese Birds of Paradise. He's also got a Guru Island in play there.
Kelvin has been playing this type of deck for years now. Every time I check out the Modern tournament and I see Kelvin playing, he's there with his Noble Hierarchs, with his Knight of the Reliquaries, and just the type of Magic that he likes to play. And you see many players like that in a format like Modern, like the specialist with one certain deck. And yep, that is Urza's Tower. The Tron is back together.
We put the band back together, and you know what? Our newest record is called Wormcoil Engine.
Yeah.
Industrial metal, I would believe, is probably the genre of that particular track.
I would go and watch that band. Wormcoil Engine. Just a couple of robots playing guitars.
Yeah, do it.
I'm down.
And Wormcoil Engine, a relatively straightforward threat, gets to tussle with just about anything, killing it off with Death Touch, the lifelink relevant, and of course if you can deal with it, it turns into 2 3/3 worm tokens, one of which had Death Touch, the other of which has Lifelink.
Well, the perfect answer for it, and this is a card that Kelvin has in his 75, is Path to Exile. That deals with it cleanly at the cost of 1 mana. Alternatively, Reflector Mage. Not a permanent answer, but it will get rid of it temporarily. Stony Silence, yeah, a little late.
Yeah, Stony Silence, it can be good during the setup phases against Tron by stopping all of those stars and baubles and expedition maps from being activated. As it stands right
also
here...
Oblivion Stone, also relevant, and Walking Ballista. So it does a whole bunch, but yeah, now it those setup turns are long in the past.
I mean, as it turns out, the banned Wormcoil engine will not be silenced.
No, Wormcoil Engine is good not because of its activated abilities. It is powerful just because of its raw stats.
So, Detention Sphere briefly got rid of Karn Liberated, but because of the likes of Nature's Claim, Karn's back, and Karn's back with a lot of loyalty. I'm not even sure who came out better in that little exchange there.
Well, Ortiz did. He just put some extra loyalty counters onto his Karn for free, basically.
Yeah, he doesn't really mind giving Kelvin a little bit of life there.
No. When you're playing Tron, you rarely care about the opponent's life total. When you are winning, you're winning big. You're casting 7 mana cards, 8 mana cards, what have you.
And this is one of the reasons that players love it. You just get the opportunity to make some really powerful plays early in the game and get on the board quickly. 7 life remaining for Kelvin Chu. Christian Ortiz on a full 28 thanks to that Wormcoil Engine's lifelink. And he's still got all of this mana to use on something this turn if he so chooses. Christian Ortiz here in awesome shape.
And how did Kelvin already get down to 7? Just damage from his own lands, I guess? Yeah. I mean, normally life total doesn't matter too much against Tron, but... honestly, it still doesn't.
I mean, the next activation of Horizon Canopy does mean that Wormcoil Engine is lethal.
Right, so that expedition map in Ortiz's hand is still shut down by Stony Silence, as is the Oblivion Stone. Now, it is still reasonably likely that Karn Liberated and Wormcoil Engine alone can win the game for Christian. But maybe if Kelvin has something like a Path to Exile on the next turn for the Wormcoil Engine, as well as multiple creatures to pressure Karn, it's not necessarily over yet.
So Sylvan Scrying here getting a Ghost Quarter for Christian Ortiz. He's not the only one who is going to have to suffer getting lands removed by opposing lands. Ghost Quarter, it can take out any land at all, lets your opponent search up a basic untapped, in this case a Guru Plains.
Yeah, it just deprives Kelvin of a free way to draw a card that might get him closer to a way to get out of this predicament, like the Path to Exile that I mentioned. If Kelvin even still has like all the copies left in his deck, I guess you would keep him in.
And a follow-up play here of Oblivion Stone. Even though in the face of Stony Silence right now it doesn't do anything, it may be that at some point in the future that position changes, and he wasn't really doing a whole lot else with his mana.
Yeah, well, eventually Karn can blow up Stony Silence if it comes to that. Stony Silence can sometimes even be a drawback, because it affects every player. Activated abilities of artifacts can be activated, which means that that clue is just sitting there. It's not going to be drawing any cards, not as long as the Stony Silence is around.
Christian Ortiz clueless. Kelvin Chu, well, his clue's just a paperweight right now. All right. Chin Heng Tan has successfully meant that there will not be a shellacking here in round 5.
Scoreboard for Singapore.
Picks up 1, and now for the second time, Karn has been sent to detention. Breakfast Club moment there for Karn. We'll see whether or not he comes out of it bigger and better, just like he did last time, having learned his lesson.
Well, and now if Kelvin finds a path to exile maybe on top of his deck. He's putting his clue under the Stony Silence, probably just to make sure that he doesn't actually accidentally start to activate it.
Yeah, it'd be unfortunate to forget about that.
Yeah.
Right now, Wormcoil Engine is a pretty big card. I mean, it says something that Kelvin Chu consistently going for the Khan rather than the Wormcoil Engine, though. Both about what he can do about the relevant threats. I mean, in this instance, Birds of Paradise just jumped in the way. There are a lot of creatures in Kelvin Chu's deck that can jump in the way of a Wormcoil Engine, even if it's only buying a small amount of time.
Well, if you add the Tension Sphere to the Wormcoil Engine, then Karn can just tick up and then tick down to get rid of the Detention Sphere, and then you're back at square one with no real way to get out of it.
So here comes a Collected Company in response to an attack from that Wormcoil Engine. Let's see what creatures Kelvin can find. I mean, the reason we refer to this deck as a Collected Company deck is that it has largely informed the creature base of what he's playing with. Under other circumstances, you might have 4, 5, 6 drop creatures in your deck. Because of Collected Company, you want to have plenty of creatures in your deck. Ideally have them all cost 3 or less, and if they've got coming into play abilities, so much the better. And here, it's Night. We have Knight of the Reliquary and Knight of Autumn coming into play, and they'll both be able to do something pretty relevant here.
Yeah, I'm looking at Kelvin's graveyard, trying to figure out how many lands he has in there. I believe he has 3, which would make the Knight of the Reliquary a 5/5. I guess you can just block.
Well, you just use Knight of Autumn to blow up the artifacts.
Oh yeah, that seems even better. I wasn't even thinking of that ability yet. Yep. Yeah, Knight of Autumn has so many options. It's good against burn by just gaining life. Against control, you have a 4-power beater, and against decks like Hardened Scales or Tron, you can blow up powerful artifacts like this Wormcoil Engine.
Relic of Progenitus coming down for Christian Ortiz here as Chong Ten Kong wins his game 2. So gradually here we see a big comeback coming on the right hand side of our screen here.
Right, so this is the Death Touch creature attacking, because that can still trade with the Knight of the Reliquary.
And Spatial Contortion after an activation of Gavany Township there, just to make sure that, at least for now, Ortiz gets to keep his creatures around without having to worry about any pesky trades going on. Relic of Progenitors might be quite good against the likes of Knight of the Reliquary, making sure that the only lands that are making it bigger are Gavany Townships gradually activating rather than all of those lands in the graveyard.
Well, remember that Stony Silence. It's not going to be activating that Relic of Progenitors anytime soon.
Very good point there, Frank. Lots of artifacts in play. The ones that are relevant right now, the worms.
Yeah. So that Knight of the Reliquary is, well, I'm not sure how big by now, but just huge. Definitely big enough to block one of those worm tokens. It will trade for the Death Touch one, but the lifelink worm token is probably not going to be happy to attack into a huge Knight of the Reliquary.
Yeah, this is the reason that at the moment we're just seeing the Death Touch worm attacking. It's the one that forces a real decision from Kelvin Chu. Considering how things started, Chu's done fairly well to stay in this game. Another Collected Company in response to an attack from the other side of the table. Again, looking at the top 6, trying to find some creatures to put into play. The Birds of Paradise that he's seen there, likely not to be good enough unless he's not got any other options. No, it's a Spell Queller and a Tireless Tracker. The Spell Queller doesn't have any spells to quell right now, but the Tireless Tracker does not mind trading off with a worm token.
Yeah, especially when there's this Stony Silence that's still preventing you from sacrificing clues. I like trading the Tireless Tracker here.
Ancient Stirrings post-combat for Christian Ortiz. He finds a Khan Liberated. Colorless cards and lands. Turns out Khan very much colorless.
Oh, yes.
And enough mana that we are going to be able to see the Planeswalker come along, potentially adjust this board quite a bit.
So I guess in one line is Karn, play it, tick down, kill the Knight of the Reliquary. But that opens up the possibility for Kelvin to attack Karn in the air with Spell Queller and boost it with the Gavany Township, so that the resulting 3 power Spell Queller would take down Karn immediately. It's still okay, but not really the amount of value you want to get out of Karn. An alternative is just playing Karn and then, ticking it up to attack Kelvin's hand, and then chum block the attacking Knight of the Reliquary to at least have Karn around for 1 more turn.
Now, is there value with this Karn of using the first Karn to release the second one from detention, get rid of the one you've just cast, and then do something else? Is that strictly better or worse than just using the Karn you've just cast to do things? I'm struggling to figure it out.
It seems worse to me, because in the end you're still stuck with the same creature, the same Karn, except now if you draw, say, an enchantment removal spell, that the Tension Sphere is not around as a target anymore.
Okay, so now Oblivion Stone and Relic of Progenitus are live.
Yeah, that's also a good angle. Almost surely better than trying to attack the creatures with Karn activations. Because sure, now Karn might die on the next turn, but then you can sweep the board with Oblivion Stone. At which point, actually, the Karn that's still lingering under the Detention Sphere can come back. So unless Kelvin changes the equation somehow, on the next turn, that is going to leave the board empty, save for a Karn on Ortiz's side. So, good choice to take out the Stony Silence there.
Each of this team of Matteo Rizzi, Francisco Sanchez and Christian Ortiz, having picked up their Game 1 wins pretty emphatically, struggling a little bit more in their Game 2s here. While Ortiz has had Tron for the entire game and has been able to get a lot of things going, the final point proving elusive as Kelvin Chu fights a valiant rearguard action here, and his teammates Chong Teng Kong and Chin Heng Tan both picking up their Game 2 wins.
In the meantime, Ortiz was also able to get that Walking Ballista by the trigger on Sanctum of Ugin after casting Karn Liberated. So all in all, things are looking good for the Tron table.
Karn, at least for now, gets to hang around.
I guess when you expect the world to be blown up by Oblivion Stone on the next turn, there's not that much point in investing lots of mana into the Gavany Township. Better sacrifice that clue while you still can, while it's still around.
This does, of course, mean that Karn potentially able to do a few more things, and another copy of Stony Silence. Pretty big draw there for Kelvin Chu, must be said. Does mean that the Oblivion Stone plan suddenly not looking quite as good, and that Walking Ballista also will just be a big vanilla creature.
Yeah. Let's see. So now the Spell Queller, maybe with a boost from the Gavany Township, can attack the Karn down to 2 loyalty on the next turn. In which case Karn wouldn't have enough loyalty to take out the Stony Silence on the next turn. And indeed, that Walking Ballista, it's going to be big. Not even sure it's going to be big enough to block the Knight of the Reliquary and take it down. Let's see. After, I think we had the Relic of Progenitus activation earlier. There's now 2 lands in the graveyard, which means that Knight of the Reliquary, currently a 5/5, would turn into a 6/6 after the Gavany Township activation. So that Walking Ballista is just a little bit too small, it looks like.
I mean, I guess it's a little bit scary to start looking at using both your creatures to attack Karn, because it doesn't take very much for the Walking Ballista to be able to swing and then finish off Kelvin Chu relatively quickly just by attacking if he's going for the full Alpha Strike here. So the swing and a pump, not without a small amount of risk.
True, but that Stony Silence still prevents activations on the Walking Ballista. Kelvin is at 6, not at 5. So you can definitely safely swing in with both creatures, and you're not in the danger of dying on the swing back. And Christian is going to chump block the Knight of the Reliquary in an attempt to save his Karn Liberated.
Yeah, Knight of the Reliquary now a 7/7, I believe. Because there was also a fetch land cracked there. Karn taking enough damage that he can only tick up this next turn.
Yep.
Another
and
ancient.
then, unless Christian adds something to the board or finds an answer to some of the attacking creatures, that Karn might be going down.
Another Ancient Stirrings here coming from Christian Ortiz. Finds Ugin the Spirit Dragon. That a gigantic pickup here.
Oh yes, that is one of the better cards that he could find. Ugin obviously has a whole bunch of abilities. Perhaps one of the more important ones, -X. Exile each permanent with converted mana cost X or less, that's 1 or more colors.
And that enough to pick up the win. And Mattia Rizzi, in some beautiful synchronized magic, able to pick up his win against Chong Teng Kong. It was not the shellacking that it initially appeared that it might be, but you know what? Mattia Rizzi, Francisco Sanchez, Christian Ortiz, they found a way to get it done there against a team that was doing a really great fight back in the latter stages of that match, having started off a full 3 game ones down.
Yeah, it was actually fun to see how, despite facing this turn 3 Karn again, Kelvin was still able to come back, attack the Planeswalkers, use the Stony Silence to shut down key artifacts, and we actually got a fun game out of it. Ultimately, Ugin still seals it, as he always does, but
those Spirit Dragons, they can do it. But we have done it now. We've completed our round 5. We hope you've enjoyed it. There will, of course, be plenty more Magic available for you. There'll be Riley and Raph available with round 6 after these messages.
Hello everyone, I'm Quinn Keefer. I play Magic Gathering competitively, and I love going to GPs because I get to see old friends, make new friends, and get to play the best game in the world, Magic. My round's starting.